Okay, so imagine you're working on a presentation in PowerPoint, crunching numbers in Excel, and drafting the final report in Word. And instead of having three separate AI conversations, Claude just remembers everything across all your apps and helps you seamlessly. That's not science fiction anymore. That just became reality today, and honestly, it's making me rethink how we're going to work with documents forever.
Wait, hold on. Claude can actually share context between Word, Excel, and PowerPoint now? Like it remembers what you discussed in one app when you switch to another?
Exactly. And that's just the beginning. We've also got Claude's new advisor tool that lets your cheaper AI agents phone a friend, specifically Opus, when they hit a tough decision. OpenAI dealt with a security scare that's requiring all Mac users to update their apps. And Google's been busy too with some pretty slick Gemini updates. I'm Tomas, and this is Semper AI Digest for Monday, April 13th, 2026.
And I'm Aiva. Thomas, I have to say, that cross-app context sharing sounds like exactly the kind of workflow integration we've been waiting for. But before we dive deep, can you paint me a picture of what this actually looks like in practice?
Oh, this is where it gets really exciting. So let's say you're in Excel analyzing quarterly sales data with Claude, asking questions like, which regions are underperforming? Or, what trends do you see in Q1 versus Q4? Then you hop over to PowerPoint to build your presentation. And instead of starting from scratch and re-explaining everything, Claude already knows about that sales analysis, the specific data points you discussed, even the conclusions you drew together.
That's actually pretty seamless. And then when you move to Word to write up the full report?
Exactly. Claude's got the full context from both previous conversations. It knows the Excel insights, it knows what slides you're building, and it can help you craft a report that ties everything together. It's like having a really smart colleague who is in all your meetings and remembers every detail.
Right, but I'm curious about the technical implementation here. This isn't just Claude being good at remembering things. This is actual technical integration between Microsoft Office applications. That suggests some pretty deep partnerships and API work behind the scenes.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this such a big deal. We're not talking about a browser extension or some hacky workaround. This is Claude natively integrated into the Office suite with proper context passing between applications. The implications for enterprise workflows are massive.
Okay, so let's think about this from a practical standpoint. If you're a financial analyst, you could be building models in Excel, discussing scenarios and assumptions with Claude, then seamlessly move to PowerPoint where Claude already understands your model structure and can help create visualizations that actually match your data analysis.
And here's the kicker. It's not just remembering the conversation, it's understanding the work product. So if Claude helped you identify that the Northeast region is struggling with a 15% decline in Q1, when you get to PowerPoint, it's not just going to say, make a slide about Northeast region. It's going to suggest specific chart types that highlight that decline. Maybe recommend focusing on the underlying factors you discussed in Excel.
That's pretty sophisticated. But I'm wondering about the privacy implications here. If Claude is maintaining context across applications, where is that information being stored and how long does it persist?
That's a really important question, and unfortunately, the announcement doesn't get into those specifics. But given that this is integrated with Microsoft Office, I'd assume it's following Microsoft's enterprise data policies. Still, for sensitive financial data or confidential business information, companies are going to want clear answers about data retention and sharing.
Right. And speaking of enterprise considerations, this feels like it could be a pretty significant competitive advantage for Claude in the business market. If you're already using Office 365, and Claude can work seamlessly across your entire workflow, while other AI assistants require separate conversations in each app.
Oh, absolutely. This is Claude making a serious play for becoming the default AI assistant in enterprise environments. And honestly, if I'm a business user, this kind of workflow integration might matter more to me than whether one model is 3% better at reasoning than another. The friction reduction is enormous.
Definitely. All right, but let's shift gears because Claude had another interesting announcement today that's more on the technical side, this advisor tool for developers. Can you break down what's happening there?
Okay, this is really clever. So you know how there are different Claude models. Haiku is fast and cheap, Sonnet is the middle ground, and Opus is the most capable, but also the most expensive. Traditionally, you'd pick one model for your entire task. But now, with the advisor tool, you can start with Haiku or Sonnet for speed and cost efficiency. And when your AI agent hits a really complex decision point, it automatically consults Opus for advice, then continues with the original model.
So it's like having a junior developer working on a problem, but when they get stuck, they can tap the senior architect on the shoulder for guidance, then continue implementing the solution themselves.
That's a perfect analogy. And the beautiful part is this all happens within a single API request. You're not managing multiple calls or handling the handoff logic yourself. Claude's system orchestrates the whole thing behind the scenes.
That's actually really smart from both a cost and performance perspective. Most tasks don't need the full power of Opus throughout, but there are often those critical decision points where you really want the most capable reasoning. This way you get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And think about the implications for complex workflows. Maybe you're building an AI agent that processes legal documents. It can zip through the routine formatting and extraction tasks with Haiku, but when it encounters an ambiguous clause that needs careful interpretation, boom! Opus steps in with its reasoning power, provides guidance, and Haiku continues with the implementation.
I'm curious about how it decides when to escalate to Opus, though. Is it based on confidence scores, specific types of tasks, or does the developer set parameters?
The announcement doesn't dive into those mechanics, but I'd imagine it's probably configurable. Maybe you can set confidence thresholds, or define specific types of decisions that should trigger the advisor, or even let the system learn from your patterns over time.
Right, and from a developer experience standpoint, this could be huge for making advanced AI workflows more accessible. Instead of having to architect complex multi-model systems yourself, you just add the advisor tool to your API call and let Claude handle the orchestration.
And the cost implications could be really interesting too. If you can get 90% of the performance with strategic Opus consultation, instead of running Opus for the entire task, that could make a lot of previously cost-prohibitive applications suddenly viable.
Definitely. All right, now let's talk about something a bit more sobering. OpenAI had a security incident that's affecting all their Mac users. What happened there?
So this involves a third-party library called Axios, which apparently had a security vulnerability that was part of a broader industry-wide incident. OpenAI says they found no evidence that user data was accessed or their systems were compromised, but they're being extra cautious about their Mac app certification process.
Okay, so first off, Axios is a pretty widely used JavaScript library for making HTTP requests. If there was a vulnerability there, OpenAI definitely wouldn't be the only company affected. But what's this about Mac app certification?
Right. So out of an abundance of caution, OpenAI is updating their security certifications, which means all Mac users need to update to the latest versions of OpenAI apps. The concern is preventing anyone from potentially distributing fake apps that appear to be legitimate OpenAI applications.
That makes sense. Mac's code signing and notarization process is designed to prevent exactly that kind of attack. Malicious apps masquerading as legitimate ones. If OpenAI is refreshing their certificates, it ensures that only their genuine apps will be recognized as authentic by macOS.
And honestly, I appreciate the transparency here. They could have just pushed out an update quietly, but instead, they're explaining exactly what happened, what the risks were, and what steps they're taking. That builds trust, especially when you're dealing with sensitive user data.
Absolutely. And the fact that they're saying no user data was accessed or systems compromised suggests their security monitoring caught this early. But it does highlight how complex the modern software supply chain is. You can do everything right with your own code and still be affected by vulnerabilities in third-party dependencies.
Right. And this is exactly why we're seeing more companies invest in supply chain security and dependency scanning. One vulnerable library can ripple across thousands of applications. It's like that old saying, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
So, for Mac users listening, the key takeaway is simple: update your OpenAI apps. You can do it through the in-app update mechanism or by downloading fresh from OpenAI's official site. Don't download from anywhere else right now.
Exactly. And speaking of updates, let's talk about what Google's been up to with Gemini, because they dropped some pretty cool features this week. First up, Notebook's integration with Notebook LM.
Okay, so I need to make sure I understand this correctly. Notebook LM is Google's AI research assistant that lets you upload documents and have conversations grounded in those specific sources, right? And now that's integrated with the regular Gemini app?
That's right. So now in the Gemini app, you can access your private notebooks from Notebook LM, or even convert your active Gemini chats into grounded sources for new research. It's like bridging the gap between casual AI chat and serious research workflows.
That's actually really smart. I've always found Notebook LM powerful but a bit isolated, like this separate research environment. But if I can take a conversation I'm having in regular Gemini and turn that into a research source, that creates much more fluid workflows.
And the reverse is true too. If you've got research notebooks set up in Notebook LM, you can now pull that context into regular Gemini conversations. So maybe you've got a notebook with all your market research on renewable energy. And now, when you're chatting with Gemini about business strategy, it can reference that specific research.
Right, so it's not just general knowledge anymore. It's your personal knowledge base integrated into the conversation. That's a pretty significant step toward more personalized AI assistance.
Plus, Google also announced that Gemini on the web now generates customizable interactive visualizations. We're talking 2D and 3D models rendered directly in your chat to help explain complex concepts.
Okay, that sounds impressive, but I'm curious about the execution. Are we talking about simple charts and graphs or more sophisticated interactive models?
From what they're describing, it sounds like the latter. They specifically mention 3D models and the ability to deconstruct complex concepts, which suggests more than just bar charts. Think molecular structures, architectural models, data visualizations you can rotate and explore.
That could be really powerful for education and research. Instead of trying to explain a complex protein structure with words, Gemini could generate an interactive 3D model you can manipulate to understand the relationships between different parts.
Exactly. And this fits into Google's broader strategy of making AI more multimodal and interactive. It's not just text anymore, it's visual, interactive, and contextual.
They also mentioned a new Google Finance tool powered by AI. What's the story there?
So that's rolling out to over 100 countries and includes market research, advanced charting, expanded real-time data, and more AI-powered analysis. Basically, Google's bringing AI to financial research and investment tools.
That makes sense given how data-intensive financial analysis is. If AI can help surface trends, analyze market patterns, and generate insights from massive datasets, that could be really valuable for both professional investors and regular people managing their portfolios.
And honestly, finance is one of those domains where AI integration feels almost inevitable. There's so much structured data, so many patterns to identify, so much research to synthesize. It's a natural fit.
Definitely. Now, we also saw Claude announce that Claude for Word is now in beta. This is separate from the cross-app context sharing we talked about earlier, right?
Right. This is specifically about the Word integration itself. So you can draft, edit, and revise documents directly from a sidebar in Word, and Claude preserves your formatting while showing edits as tracked changes.
Oh, that tracked changes feature is smart. That's exactly how collaborative editing works in Word already, so it fits into existing workflows. You can see what Claude suggested, accept or reject individual changes, just like you would with a human collaborator.
And the fact that it preserves formatting is crucial too. There's nothing worse than asking an AI to help with a document and having it strip out all your careful formatting in the process. This sounds like it actually understands and respects the document structure.
right? And it's available on team and enterprise plans, which makes sense. This is clearly targeted at business users who need that level of integration and reliability. Though I imagine individual users are going to want access to this pretty badly too.
Oh, absolutely. Once people see Claude integrated directly into Word with proper formatting and track changes, working any other way is going to feel clunky. This is one of those features that's going to be hard to live without once you've tried it.
All right, let's rapid fire through some quick hits before we wrap up. What else caught your attention this week?
So there's some interesting development work happening on addressing GPT is lazy issues. There are 2 experiments coming in the next OpenClaw release, including something called strict mode that tells GPT 5.x to keep working instead of giving up on complex tasks.
That's addressing a real user complaint. People have definitely noticed that sometimes GPT models will sort of punt on difficult requests instead of really wrestling with them. If they can tune the models to be more persistent, that could improve the user experience significantly.
And OpenAI also dropped links to 2 new tools, Codex CLI and something called Atlas. Unfortunately, just links without much context, but Codex CLI sounds like it could be a command line interface for developers. And Atlas, well, that's anyone's guess at this point.
Classic OpenAI cryptic announcement style, though a Codex CLI would make sense, giving developers a way to integrate AI code assistants directly into their terminal workflows. That could be pretty powerful for the command line crowd.
And finally, just a fun one. Gemini's got a new image transformation feature where you can upload any photo and turn it into a paper cutout style. It's one of those delightful creative features that might not change the world, but definitely brings some joy to using AI.
I actually love features like that. They're a reminder that AI isn't just about productivity and business workflows, it can also be playful and creative. Sometimes the most memorable AI interactions are the fun, unexpected ones.
Absolutely. And honestly, those creative features often end up being gateway drugs to more serious AI usage. Someone tries the paper cutout thing, has a good experience, and suddenly they're more open to using AI for work tasks.
So, looking at everything we covered today, the cross-app context sharing, the advisor tool, the security incident, all the Gemini updates, what's your big picture takeaway?
I think we're seeing AI assistants mature from novelty tools into genuine workflow infrastructure. The Claude Office integration isn't just about having an AI to chat with. It's about AI understanding your entire work context and helping across your whole digital environment. That's a fundamental shift.
Right, and the advisor tool shows that we're getting more sophisticated about when and how to use different AI capabilities. It's not just throw the biggest model at every problem anymore. It's orchestrating different strengths for optimal results.
Plus, the security incident, while concerning, shows the industry taking responsibility and being transparent about challenges. As AI gets more integrated into critical workflows, that kind of trustworthy communication becomes essential.
And Google's pushing on multiple fronts: research integration, interactive visualizations, financial tools. It feels like everyone's racing to make AI more useful in specific, concrete ways rather than just more generally capable.
Which is exactly what users want. We don't need AI that's 10% better at general reasoning as much as we need AI that seamlessly fits into how we actually work and create.
Definitely. All right, that's a wrap on today's Semper AI Digest. If you found this useful, make sure to subscribe and share it with anyone who wants to stay on top of what's actually happening in AI.
And if you've got thoughts on any of these stories or news we should be covering, you can always reach out to us. We love hearing from listeners about what matters to you in the AI space.
Until next time, keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI.
This has been Semper AI Digest. I'm Tomas.
And I'm Aiva. Thanks for listening.